Hello friends! Today I'm finally going to install this nifty little sound card in my Apple IIc. This is called the Mockingboard 4c, created by Ian Kim of South Korea back in 2016 actually. And I purchased it from him about 1 year ago. So yeah, this video's been long in coming. This card is not an outright clone of the original Mockingboards that came out in the 1980s, which really makes it quite unique and is quite innovative, because even though there was a Mockingboard D for the Apple IIc, it was an external box with speakers and everything because there are no slots in the Apple IIc. But Ian really put his mind to it and figured out a way to not just fit it inside the computer in addition to the speakers, but he also used the original sound chips, or at least chips that are basically clones of the original chips, so that he can retain most of the software compatibility that the original slot-type Mockingboards offered, which is just absolutely brilliant. So we're going to be taking a look at this today. And also, Ian provided me with an STL file that one of his customers had sent to him. And I had 3D prints made at a professional printing service, JLC PCB. And I printed in 3 different types of plastic so I can see if the clips will help me more easily install the 2 included speakers. But before we dive into that, let's take a look at a little history of the original Mockingboard and the company behind it. In late 1978, Rod Nakamoto acquired his first Apple II, falling in love with the computer, but not its simplistic 1-bit audio. Rod ushered in 1979 by building the first Mockingboard prototype, using a single AY-3-8910 sound chip, an S-01 voice chip, dual R6522 VIA chips for I/O control, and dual LM386N amplifier chips to power speakers. Rod wrote the driver and text-to-speech code in 6502 assembly language. His wife Nancy assisted Rod with important feedback on system usability. All work was done in their small apartment, which Nancy once described as a mad scientist laboratory. Nancy also came up with the name Mockingboard because the device imitated sounds just like a real mockingbird. In 1980, Dr. Morris Sweet, a local dentist, provided funds and human resources to kickstart the new company. It was named Sweet Microsystems in his honor. 1982 was the year of Apple Fest, where the very first Mockingboard was sold for $299 in Houston, Texas. A year-end holiday promo deal with the Apple Puget Sound Program Library Exchange, also known by their popular print magazine Call Apple, resulted in hundreds more Mockingboards sold to the user group's members. Sweet Micro's first offices were located at 150 Chestnut Street in Providence, Rhode Island, located directly above the Last Call Saloon. Rod told me that rock bands played every night so loudly, Sweet Micro staff members couldn't even hear themselves speak. Then, 16-year-old Will Harvey wrote a letter to Sweet Micro about his software prototype that later became Music Construction Set.
I think computers are a way that people can be introduced to music.
Rod met Skyfox creator Ray Tobey at Apple Fest '82 in Boston, and Rod was able to coax Steve Wozniak to have a look at Ray's proof of concept. Woz then whipped out his business card and wrote a note to Electronic Arts founder Trip Hawkins, saying it was the finest Apple game ever done. Woz was a huge fan and supporter, at one point purchasing 100 Mockingboards to give as Christmas presents to friends. Sweet Micro also worked on Mockingboard compatibility with Penguin Software founder Mark Pelcharski, as well as Ultima Game Series creator Richard Garriott. Many more Mockingboard-compatible titles began to appear in early 1983, including Synergistics Microbe by Bob Clardy. In late 1983, Sweet Micro was made privy to an Apple IIc prototype. Learning it was a closed system without slots quickly got Sweet Micro to work on a special Mockingboard. Apple invited Sweet Micro to participate in the April 1984 Apple II Forever event in San Francisco, where the Apple IIc was introduced. The Mockingboard D was also introduced at the event. Later that year, Rod Nakamoto left Sweet Micro to launch Interactive Designs, a game development company that Sega of America acquired in 1992. Rod went on to advance his career as a gaming industry executive. While not nearly as advanced as the 3-voice SID chip in the Commodore 64, Mockingboards were still a significant upgrade from the 1-bit sound of the Apple II. Steve Wozniak originally intended the speaker only for simple beeps or clicks. With that said, some very talented programmers have created sophisticated 1-bit audio on the Apple II, and the YouTube channel Forgotten Computer gives us a little taste of that.
Let's hear Turkish Rondo.
But the downside to that impressive audio is that the CPU utilization is pegged at 90 to 100%. That means the CPU can't do anything else. In contrast, the Mockingboard 4c not only offers more sophisticated 6-voice sound, but it also frees the CPU using only about 10% of the CPU cycles, leaving the remaining 90% or more to gameplay or motion graphics. And here is the complete Mockingboard 4c kit. You get a printed manual, you get the main unit, you get 2 speakers attached to a single connector, so 4 wires total, and you also get this harness, which is an optional connection. And then this was the box that it shipped in. And that's it. It's a very simplistic kit. Now, even though the photo shows a chip here, there is no chip here, because this chip is actually your CPU chip, which should be socketed on yours. You pull it out and you put your CPU in here. The other thing to take note of is that Ian Kim told me that the 2 speakers may not look exactly as you see here, because apparently he has sourced different speakers over time. Again, he's been selling this since about 2016. It's now the end of 2024, so speakers may differ. These are actually smaller than the stock speaker, so I'm not sure how much volume I'm going to get out of them. One other thing I took notice of is that the 2 speaker wires are not twisted. If you are familiar with vintage Mac computers like the SC30 and you look at the stock speaker, the 2 wires are twisted very tightly to reduce the possibility of noise getting induced into those wires. So if there's enough extra slack, I may remove the wires from the connector and twist them myself. I think that would be really best, but anyway, I'll see about that in a little bit. The wire over here is completely optional, but in my mind it's not really optional, because if you don't attach this, you cannot control the volume from outside the computer. This connector will attach here to where it says VOL, and then the other end you would have to solder to a certain point that I'm going to show you in a few moments. And basically that allows your primary volume control on the left side of your Apple IIc to control your Mockingboard. And I really think that's a must, because there are times when you're going to want to change the volume, and you're not going to want to open the case every time. But for those of you who are adamant about not touching even one simple point with solder, you don't have to connect it. And in that case, the volume will be fixed. But Ian has included these 2 potentiometers that you can, before you close up the case, adjust what the volume will be. And then you just close up the case, and you're going to have to live with the volume, whatever you set, until the next time you open the case. But again, that's why I want to install this optional wire, so I don't have to fiddle with these, and I can just use the volume control on the 2C. The Mockingboard 4c does include an auxiliary output for use with external speakers, and Jonathan Adar told me it sounds amazing. So that's always an option for those of you who dislike the internal speakers, but external speakers will require more desk space. In order to proceed with the installation, you need to flip your Apple IIc over, and we need to remove some screws. Now, of course, I have the MacUFX clear case. To learn more about it, please check out my previous video on the subject, link in the text description below. What you need to do, regardless of whatever case you have, is remove 6 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then these 2 back here, 5 and 6. Leave the 4 drive screws intact. And now, regardless of what case you have, even if you have the stock case that's of a 3-piece design like this, where the back plate is a separate piece, or if it's molded together with the top plate, doesn't matter. I'm going to be using the technique taught to me by Javier Rivera, and that is the drop technique. So we pick it up and drop it, but never, never, never do it until you remove the screws from the bottom, which in my case are removed now. And those of you who watched my previous video know that some of the tabs have broken off of this back plate. Now, I was told that people with the MB4c case have tried the drop technique and they said the case was unscathed. So I'm just going to proceed and we're going to see how well it goes. So here we go. I'm going to lift it up and then drop. Okay, well, maybe I need to drop it from a higher distance. It's sort of opened. Normally on the two-piece design, it comes right open, but we'll try another drop. Okay, that popped him right out, and it's still stuck in there. So, you know, I'm usually the person who has problems. Everybody else can do things except for me, but who knows, maybe you'll have the same thing too. Okay, so it's free on this side, but it's not free on this side. Well, sadly, it seems I was given bad advice, at least with regard to the MB4c case. I can't speak about the three-piece stock case because I don't have one and I've never tried it before, but for my stock case, which is a two-piece design, the top part is built into the back panel and then it has a separate bottom piece. For that, Javier's drop technique works every time. But for this MB4c case with its three-piece design, no. No. And, well, what I see here is that there's a tab in the MB4c case, a tab that goes into the drive faceplate here, and another tab here. And this one turned white, which means it was bent a little bit. It's still in there, and for the life of me, I could not pop it open. So what I had to do is, off camera, I removed the 4 drive screws. So I told you don't remove the drive screws, but actually I have to in order to get mine out. And when you remove the drive screws, then the entire drive comes up along with the case, and then you're able to get it out. But I notice here that this tab has broken because of the drop, and this tab did not break, but it turned white, which means it was bent. So even though other people advise me it's okay, based upon my experience that you've seen here, I cannot recommend doing the drop to open technique if you have a MB4c clear case for your Apple IIc. And so the right side is free, as you can see. The drive being loose, I pick up on the back case, and it's stuck on the drive pretty good. There goes that foot. So the tab on this side broke off, and then we can take off the top case. And just to show you in the aftermath of all of this, this tab is okay, this tab is okay, this tab is okay. These 3 tabs are gone. Now one of the tabs was gone from the get-go. And in my last video I had 2 tabs that were on there, but now they're completely broken off and vanished. So again, there's a tab over here, but there's no tab over here. So this tab is gone. There should be a tab here just like this one, but this one's gone. And thankfully this tab is in place, because without this, because of all these other tabs being gone, it wouldn't stay on. So again, I think there's an inherent problem with these tabs not being strong enough from the get-go, but the fact that the drop to open technique broke off the remnants of the tabs means you don't want to do that if you've got a MB4c case. And just showing you on the top side, nearest the Apple logo, this tab is in place. But this tab over here is broken off, and this broke off due to the drop technique I did today. Now we need to remove the keyboard. I have a MB4c keyboard, so it's different than yours probably. Yours just has the one connection here, if you have a stock keyboard. And then we can move it out of the way. Now I should mention though that on the MB4c keyboard there is no brace because it has a metal frame. But if yours has a plastic brace, you're going to have to remove it. And if that's a deal breaker for you, then you shouldn't get the Mockingboard 4c because that's required. Okay, now it's time to remove the CPU. It says CPU here in silkscreen. Now the previous owner put this ROM 0 sticker on the CPU, and I don't know why they did that because the ROM is over here to the left. Maybe they didn't want to cover up their sticker on the ROM, but anyway, this is not a ROM. This is the CPU. Somebody just put the sticker on it. You're going to need a thin and small flathead screwdriver so you can stick it under and pry it out. And probably it's best to start on the left side because the case is a little bit in the way here on the right side. And I'm kind of, I don't know if I want to push down hard on him, so I should probably take out my ROM. I don't want to press down on him so hard. Now I can more easily fit the screwdriver under. It's a pretty tight fit. Really tight. I hear some crackling there. Okay, so what I'm doing is twisting. I'm just twisting. I'm putting fit it under and then just twist a little bit to the right and to the left. And then we're going to do the other side. And I cannot fit him under, so I'm going to press down on him. Maybe that'll push up the other end a little bit. Yeah, sometimes it does. It helps if you pry up the left side and then push down on him. It helps to loosen up the right side. Okay, there is just not much space under there. I closed off all the space. And be very careful that you pry under the chip and not under the socket. If you pry under the socket, wow, you're going to have major problems and destroy something. But I am prying between the very bottom of the chip and the top part of the socket itself. Ba-bum, ba-bum. And now it's time to put the CPU into this socket. If you look straight down like the camera view, you won't be able to see which is pin 1, but if you look at it from the side view, you'll be able to see the same silk screen that you see here is actually underneath this socket. And you can see the curve here and then pin 1. The same is actually over here if you look at it from the side. So this is the pin 1 side, and we can see here on the chip, there's the little oval, right? So it matches up with that oval, and it matches up on this side. So this would be the way you want to put it in. Do not, no, don't put it in this way with the oval cut out over there. No, don't do that. Do not do that. And you want to put it in here. Before you put it in, make sure you didn't bend any pins, right? And I already checked my pins and they're okay. And so you want to carefully put it in and don't shift it, out of position. Make sure it's going to go down, straight down, all the pins in there. And okay, I got the top side, but this bottom side, I feel resistance. So don't push down on it too hard until you feel it's going to go in. Some kind of resistance on the right side here. Okay, now I feel it going down. Yeah. So I could feel it was sinking down a little bit on both sides, and then I could feel confidence to push it down. And I would suggest you not push with all your might because it's got standoffs on the bottom, and you don't want to crack the center of the board. So I would suggest that you take it with your hands and push it down in there like that. And yeah, he's in there now. Okay. Now before plugging in our Mockingboard 4c, you have some options here. This is ROM 0, and you could use your stock ROM. I also have from Reactive Micro a pre-programmed ROM 4X, and that will be the same size as this chip. And I also have one of these guys, a ROM XC, which has a clock battery, and you can actually put stuff in ROM. This is pretty awesome. It costs more money than a ROM 4X, and it's physically larger, so I want to put it in and see how well it fares in terms of size. And you want to make sure that you get your pins lined up and make sure your pins are straight. Okay, there we go. And this PCB is coming close to the speaker, but it's not touching. And then we can put our board. Now, you have to be careful with these pins and make sure you don't shift it. You know, get two pins that are hanging off the side of the socket rather than in the socket. So I'm looking at it from the side, making sure that it's going to go in there. And yeah, okay. So don't push it down too hard until you feel it's kind of sinking in there. And I want to make sure. Okay. I'm looking at it from the side. You're not able to see me looking at it from the side, but it is from the side I'm looking. Yes, and it kind of sinks down in there. I didn't press it with all my might, but it is down in there. And you can see the ROM-XC board has a nice gap. So this doesn't interfere with the ROM-XC. And this will be neat because we can test different ROMs with this. And that's because the Mockingboard uses slot 4. But as you know, the ROMs 3 and 4 do not reserve slot 4 for the mouse. But ROM 255 and ROM 0 do use the slot 4 for the mouse. So if you have a ROM-XC, you'll be able to switch among the 4 different Apple IIc ROMs and see if that has an impact on the Mockingboard. But even though small ROM cards like the ROM-XC play perfectly well with this in terms of compatibility and physical size, RAM cards are a different matter, specifically the one from Applied Engineering, which actually takes up quite a bit of space. There's no way to fit both that RAM card and the Mockingboard 4C in here. So if you have only one 2C and it has the RAM card, then you're going to have to make a choice. Do you want to keep using the RAM card or the Mockingboard? Because you can't use both. And here are my speakers. As you can see, I did a few things off camera here. I twisted each wire pair for better noise immunity. And how I was able to do that, there's two ways you can do it. You can desolder and then twist. But what I did was I removed each wire pair from the connector. And you're able to do that in these 4 little slots. I have a very, very thin tipped pair of tweezers. And I pushed it through the hole just enough to allow me to pull out each wire, because there's a wing that kind of goes up, and you got to push that wing down in order to pull the wire out. And so I just took another magnet and mounted it to my refrigerator so this speaker would be secured, and then I could tug on the wires and the speaker wouldn't move. And I was able to twist this fairly tightly, and then I did this one next, and I was able to twist it even more tightly. And even after twisting, there's still more than sufficient length. So you don't really have to worry about that at all. And it would be great if this could come like this out of the box so you didn't have to do this. It didn't take me too long, but it's kind of fiddly. Even so, Ian would probably have to do it by hand. I don't think the factories would do it for him. But I recommend that you do this for the best noise immunity. All right, now it's time to connect our little wire to this white 2-pin connector where it's marked VOL in white silkscreen, in order to be able to control the volume using the 2C's volume control knob from outside the machine. And the connector has a side that's got a slot in it, and the slot needs to go face down, and then you've got two little holes in it which go face up, and it just connects just like that. And then we are going to connect this wire. You can determine if you want to cut it off or not. It's a bit longer than it needs to be, but we're going to connect it over here in what Ian calls pin 4, but actually it's just the middle pin. Okay, so I'll start off by putting a little flux on him. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's that pin. So you want to be careful you don't bridge solder between pins, but just get him right on the middle pin. I'm going to tin the very tip of the wire here, so it'll make it easier for me to solder him. Now it's time to put in our speakers. Just plug him in right like that. Ian's manual doesn't say left and right channels specifically, but in the photos in his manual, he always shows the green and white wires to be on the right side, and then the red and the black wires to be on the left side. And I'm not going to mount these speakers yet. I want to make sure it works first before I go through all the trouble of mounting it. And just as a first test, we'll leave them here and try to keep them from shorting out on the motherboard. Okay, here's our first test. It's kind of messy, please excuse that, but booting off my floppy EMU into total replay, but just like Chris Torrance said, there's an unfortunate sound coming through both speakers even when no sound from the computer is playing. Let's see if I can record that here for you. It's, I don't want to say too extremely annoying, but I wouldn't want this sound to be playing all the time. Now the volume is max. I'm going to turn it down now. And interestingly enough, the sound increases when I turn off the sound. And you heard that, right? And now that's like 30% volume, and I don't hear it anymore. And then as I go up, I hear it. Now Chris Torrance, he discovered this problem, which I assume now that I'm saying it, everybody who owns the Mockingboard probably hears it.
So there's a high-pitched humming coming from the speakers, which I think is just interference from the board. So my solution for the noise interference problem was just to put a couple resistors in series with the speaker wires. And I used 47 ohm resistors, and this seemed enough to not decrease the volume of the sound too much, but also getting rid of all the interference.
And it's not through induced noise because I twisted both wires. So this is coming from the Mockingboard. And even Ian Kim mentioned something about it, that he was unable to remove it, filter it out. Although Chris was able to filter it out by adding a 47 ohm resistor in line with each speaker, which he said reduces the volume but eliminates the sound. So I guess I'm going to need to try that because this is pretty annoying. But, well, before we do that, let's turn up the volume. And then we'll try a Mockingboard enabled game. Okay. And the volume's maxed out. Well, the sound is what I would expect for speakers of this size. And again, the speakers are not mounted, so it'll probably sound a little bit better once the speakers are mounted. Let's see if I can turn it down. Yeah. Okay, but interestingly, as the sound, it's off right now, but the sound is still coming through. But now the whine is about as loud as the game music. So once the game music is playing, it's at a decent volume. You really don't hear the whine, probably because the game music is so much louder. It's there, but you just don't notice it. Okay, so I'm going to add the resistor and see if that does anything good. Okay, here is the result. I did testing before I put the resistors in to make sure that it's working okay. And then basically what I did is this. To make it easy, I unsoldered the red wire on the left speaker, the white wire on the right speaker. I unraveled, clipped the wire into two pieces, and inserted the resistor. This is a 1/2 watt, 47 ohm. I tested it a long time. It never even gets warm. So you probably don't even need a 1/2 watt, but that's what I had on hand, so I used that. I did a lot of testing, and then after I confirmed that it was working okay, then I put heat shrink on it and rewrapped everything and then soldered it down. Now I will say this, when you add the 47 ohm resistor, everything is reduced dramatically in terms of volume. Both the sounds that you want and that undesirable noise. It's all reduced considerably. So much so that when you maximize the volume, it's just not loud enough. No, it's really, really hard to hear. So what you're going to have to do is come over here to these two potentiometers, because you've got the left channel gain and the right channel gain. And previously, in terms of a clock face direction, 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock is where both of these were set at the factory. And I had to max them out, go counterclockwise all the way as far as they would go. And that maximized the volume. But even then, the maximum volume, when you have the volume knob turned all the way up, it's still noticeably lower than before you added the resistor. Of course, right? Of course. But the good news is that the noise level is actually reduced and attenuated down far more than the computer-generated audio sounds that you want to hear. So in other words, the resistors are producing their desired effect. I mean, the ideal situation is not to waste all of your power through heat, which is what is happening with this resistor. It would be better to have a high ohmage speaker instead. You know, like the Macintosh SE and SE30, they have a 63 ohm speaker. And actually this amplifier supports that, but well, those speakers are hard to come by, so you wouldn't want to use it in here. And I think they're bigger than the stock speaker, so it probably wouldn't even fit. But if we did have higher ohmage speakers, they would be more efficient than this. Nevertheless, it came with these speakers, so I wanted to use them, and yeah, I'll let you hear it in a little bit, but the maximum volume is reduced, but it mostly eliminates the noise. If I put my ear against the speakers, I can still hear it, but if I sit at a normal listening distance with the keyboard down and everything in a moderately quiet room, it's very difficult to hear. In a super quiet room, you'd probably still detect it, but it's no longer annoying to me. I can say that. So if you buy this product, yeah, you're definitely going to have to add those resistors. It would be nice if they were added at the factory, but well, it is what it is. And then I also put on the speaker clips. Now, as I mentioned originally, I printed at JLC PCB 3 different types. This 100% transparent is made out of resin, and so is the semi-transparent. And after comparing them both, I decided to go with 100% transparent just because it looks nice on this MB4c clear case. But if you have a stock case, I would recommend the nylon in white, and that's because nylon is stronger and more durable than resin. And also, it's more flexible too. And I think that's key, because the only way to put this clip over your speaker is to insert one side into one of the slots, then put your speaker under, and then you're going to have to press with your fingers. You can't use a tool. I wasn't able to do that. I had to take my thumb and push on the left side, and then with my index finger, push as hard as I could on the right to kind of bend it while pushing down. And I was able to do it. I didn't think I could, but I finally was able to do it. And so basically you're pushing in this way on it, and I was able to push it down into the slot. And you want to make sure that your speaker is kind of in the right position under this. And it was. And it really, I can't even move the speaker now. It's holding them down very firm, and it's low enough to where it's not going to touch your keyboard. It's not going to touch the Mockingboard. Now, for this side, I had to remove the Mockingboard 4C and to install it. But as you can see, it fits nicely under the Mockingboard. They do not touch. There's still clearance there. And taking off the Mockingboard allowed me to put these wires underneath the card itself. And then I arranged everything nicely so the wires wouldn't get in the way. But basically in the text description I've linked the STL file which Ian Kim sent me. So whoever created this, I don't know who it is, but he said one of his customers. I would say yes, this is highly recommended. And by the way, whenever you test your speakers, whenever they're not mounted like this, whenever they're just dangling off the side, it's going to be lower volume overall. And when you mount them like this, then you gain a little bit of volume, even though they're firing down, or perhaps maybe because they're firing down, I don't know, but it rattles the case, I guess, right? The noise is, the waveform is going into the case and then it's bouncing off your desk at you. So the overall feeling in your ears is that the volume increases a bit. It's still not quite enough, I think, but even at maximum volume, but at least it eliminates the noise, the resistor I mean, and it's just something that you really need to do. And here's how it looks from the bottom. And now that everything's put back together again, let's do some tests here with software. Booting off my floppy EMU. The beep is from the internal speaker. This is pure noise, a patched version that Ian Kim made. Okay, let's switch this to Not So Cheap Tunes. Of course, we can use our volume. Turn him down. You can still hear it, even though it's all the way down. And the noise increased a little bit, but it's not annoying loud. It's just very faintly detectable. But basically, you can see that we've got two chips, sound chips, on the Mockingboard 4C. Just like the original 1980s Mockingboards, except for the very first one, which only had one chip, but you've got 3 voices per chip, so here we have 6 voices. Turn the volume back up. Arrow key to the next song. And turn it down so you can hear me. So links to all of the software that I'm showing you now is in the text description below. And what I can say is that these speakers are so tiny, you're not really getting any bass at all. So if I turn it up, you can hear. And if you listen to this using an emulator like Virtual 2, Apple IIe with a Mockingboard enabled in slot 4, if you listen to it with an iMac or Apple Silicon Mac with excellent speakers, you're going to hear a lot more bass. So the physical size of the speaker really makes a significant difference. Okay, let's try something else. Ultima 4. Now I'm not going to go through every piece of software that's compatible with a Mockingboard, but I am just giving you a few pieces of software that I have already confirmed off camera that do work. And one of them only works if you manually enable the Mockingboard, and I'll show you how to do that in a few seconds here. So that fire is coming through the built-in speaker because the Mockingboard hasn't been enabled yet, and we have to actually enable that, activate Mockingboard. And we only have one Mockingboard. And we want to choose 3 because it's a Mockingboard A actually. And it's in slot 4. Pretty neat. And so certain sound effects can play through the built-in speaker, while the Mockingboard will play sounds that the built-in speaker can't play. But right now, only the Mockingboard speakers are working. And the volume is pretty good. I have it maxed out. It's as high as it'll go. But in a quiet room, it's not bad. In a noisy room, you're going to find that it's not enough, but because of the 47 ohm resistor. But it's still pretty good. Okay, let's try something else. This is from Sweet Micro. It is a demo. And then you've got a bunch of selections. I'm not going to go through them all, but we have sound effects, gunshot, machine gun, train, helicopter, ocean, it's not stopping. Pump. Maybe that's a bug. But anyway, you can play around with that. Then it's got a musical demonstration, B. Now, what I can say is, in regards to this piece, it's really kind of quiet, even though the volume is max. You heard the pure noise in the other ones we just showed, and that was a bit louder than this, so I don't know, I guess it's the way it was programmed, but it's a little bit quiet. And we've got H, multiple noise 2. So, just a fun little demo disc of things that we can do. Let's try something else. Zaxxon. And this game also. The firing is loud, but the thrust is not. This is a Sweet Micro holiday music disc. And what I found is, I tested this on the Virtual 2 emulator with the Apple IIe and a Mockingboard enabled, and it works fine. You should be hearing music at this point. But for some reason there's an incompatibility with the Mockingboard 4c, and I tried typing in the commands to manually enable the Mockingboard, still doesn't play. And because I have a ROM XC, I can switch between FF, ROM 0, ROM 3, and ROM 4, and changing ROMs from ROM 0 to ROM 4 did not fix it either. So maybe this is just another one that needs to be patched by Ian Kim. I did write to him about it, so we'll see what happens. But there is some software like this that should work, but for whatever reason does not. And now I am doing Will Harvey's music construction set. But we're going to see here in a second, if we wait for the demo, what's going to happen. Now, I heard on another YouTube video that this wouldn't work at all, but in fact that's not the case, as I'm soon going to show you. Now what you're hearing is playing through the speaker, the factory 2C speaker. It's not playing through the Mockingboard at all. And you'll see it's frozen up here too. So, what we have to do, I'm going to eject my disk. And I'm going to get a prompt here. And Ian Kim has a manual on how to manually on or turn on the Mockingboard 4c. And it says you can do a poke command or you can go to monitor. So I'm going to do the monitor one. And it says to type call, not call Apple, but call 151, return. And then you get a monitor asterisk prompt, right? And then we want to do C403 colon FF space FF. All right. And that manually enabled Mockingboard. So now what we want to do is make sure that we have our music construction set floppy selected. Otherwise, it's not going to boot when we enter the command to boot. And it says the command to boot is C600G. C like cat, 600. G like goody. Now let's see what happens. Wait for the demo. And you can hear the difference, right? And you can see the difference. It's moving. And so of course it's not playing through the internal speaker anymore, it's playing through the Mockingboard. So there is some software like this that you do have to manually enable the Mockingboard with the commands that is listed in the manual, the ones that I just typed in. Otherwise it won't work right. And I believe if we type arrow, it will go to a different song. And we have Lancaster. You can hear the faint background music too. It's very faint compared to the sounds. The guns blasting. Pretty neat game. So here we have Sky Fox. And on this game, the volume is quite good. I'm actually not very good at this game. But you know what? This game reminds me of Mac Attack that I played on my, I think it even worked on the Macintosh 128K, but very similar, except, well, no color, obviously, on the Mac. You got a plane, and you're shooting tanks. And on the Mac, you have to use the mouse. But very similar game. Pretty neat. And very nice volume, even with that 47 ohm resistor in there. Ian Kim has an eBay page which lists all of his products, but unfortunately I checked it today and I couldn't find the Mockingboard 4c on it. I'm not surprised at all, really, because when I first contacted him in October last year, 2023, he didn't have any stock then either. And he said to me, contact me again some weeks from now. So I contacted him again 2 months later, and he then had stock. And he was able to fill my order on Christmas Day, 2023. So it looks to be the same situation for you, or maybe he has the product, but he's just not listing it on eBay for some reason. That is very possible. But I can say that the price, before discounts and not including shipping, last year anyway, it was, I'm looking at my notes here, $144.90 US. But he says if you don't buy through eBay and you contact him and buy direct, because there are no eBay fees, he will discount that price by 7%. And so that's what I did. I said, why pay more? Because I can pay him through PayPal just as easily as I could use PayPal on eBay. And so I did that, and I had to pay shipping too. So with the discount and with shipping and all together, from shipping from Korea to my address in Japan, it cost me $157 US. And I put a link in the text description below that shows you his discount page and how to contact him about it. So if you're interested in the Mockingboard, you can go ahead and do that. So now the question becomes, is it worth $157? And my answer to that is, well, in the end, it was. And only because Chris Torrance found a way to solve the noise problem. If there was no solution, it would be an emphatic no, it's not worth it. Because that noise, I'm going to be brutally honest, it annoyed the heck out of me. It really did. It's kind of like a hybrid car sound, you know. You drive at slow speeds and it makes a sound for blind people, you know, for safety, for people who can't see the car. It would otherwise be silent. So it's kind of like that airy type of sound, and very annoying. And I could hear it even in a moderately noisy room. And it was obviously annoying enough for Chris Torrance to find a solution, and he did, those 47 ohm resistors. And so I would say, you know, I contacted Ian Kim about it, and it's his contention that it is the result of old power supplies. You know, the Apple II, it's not just the external brick that's your power supply, you also have a power supply on the inside too. And that was his contention. And he also said that in his testing, with his 2C, he didn't say if he has a modern power supply replacement or not. Maybe he does, I don't know. But he just said that the noise was very low level, and it didn't annoy him at all, and he couldn't hear it so well. Okay, be that as it may, it was loud enough and annoying enough for Chris Torrance to find a solution, right? To do whatever it took to get those resistors in. And in my case also, I would never have been satisfied with that noise. So I would say, what is your chance of experiencing what Chris and I have experienced compared to what Ian has experienced? I don't know. But chances are you're going to have to add the resistors. So just be prepared for that. My other gripe, it's not a deal breaker, but it's a gripe, is that the speakers are small. They're smaller than the stock speaker, and a significantly smaller magnet too. Even if they use better magnet technology, I mean, it's just a sliver of a magnet. And that means you get no bass at all. And yes, I'm willing to live with it only because I like the Apple IIc. I like the C in Apple IIc. It's compact. And I want to maintain that by having the speakers inside. So it's kind of a sacrifice. And yes, there is that auxiliary output jack that my friend Jonathan Adar was saying he has tested, and it got great sound for him. using external speakers. I didn't test that, and I'm sorry, but I have no intention to use external speakers, and also I didn't want to delay this video, so I didn't test that. But he said it was very clean audio for him. So if you buy this and are unhappy with the speakers, especially after you add that resistor mod because it lowers your maximum volume, then I would say you could potentially solve the problem with the external speakers. However, Jonathan told me that he had to drill a hole in his case to make a connector so that he could plug in and unplug the speakers. Although today he was telling me, he was showing me a Bluetooth board that might work to wirelessly send audio. It's just a concept, you know, I'm not going to show you anything about it, but it's untested. It was just an idea he was throwing out. Maybe you could eliminate the drilling in the hole and the wires by adding a Bluetooth solution. But that's assuming that noise is not transmitted. You know, what is the signal to noise ratio? I don't know, but I'm just saying that there are possible solutions. And overall, I would say it's an improvement. I mean, I'm a Mac guy through and through. My first computer, 1984, Macintosh 128K. I never used Apple IIs when I was young. My first Apple II was this guy in October 2023. And when I first fiddled with him, I mean, truly, the first and biggest thing I noticed was the audio. I said, man, this, compared to the Mac, this is not great at all. You know, most of the time it's little clicks, that's about it. Or you'll hear the sound, but the motion will stop while the sound is playing. And on the Mac, you don't have any of that. And the Mac doesn't have a sound card either. It has a much more powerful processor, but it doesn't have a dedicated audio system, you know. And when you add the Mockingboard, it's a big difference. Even though not every program is compatible with it, in terms of the programs that are compatible with it, it's a night and day difference. And it really brings joy to my face when using the Apple II. And so again, that's why I can give you a recommendation for it, even though it's kind of pricey. But if you have the money to buy one and you understand the caveats, then you'll probably be pretty happy with it, compared to stock audio anyway. So, if you're wondering why Prince of Persia is playing on this screen right now, the answer is that no, it's not Mockingboard compatible, but Ian Kim claims to have found a bug in the game, because the game, even though it's not compatible with the Mockingboard, it somehow detects that Ian Kim's Mockingboard 4c is installed and it won't work. The game freezes up. And so I sent my Mockingboard 4c back to Ian, and he did a small hardware mod. He said it's proprietary and he's not going to give me the details of it, but he did a hardware mod to work around the bug in Prince of Persia, so that now, as you can see, the demo's playing. It works. And not just the demo, but you can play the game too. So he was able to resolve that. And yeah, the audio it plays through the stock speaker and not through the Mockingboard, but still, it was very nice that he found a solution for that problem to ensure that his card is not going to interfere with other software. And that brings this video to a close. So it's your turn now to tell me your thoughts down in the comments. What do you think about the Mockingboard 4c? Or what do you think about the 1980s sweet micro Mockingboards? Or you can just tell me your thoughts about Apple II audio in general. I'd love to hear back from you because I enjoy engaging with all of you down in the comments. If you like what you saw today and found it useful, I'd certainly appreciate it if you click on that thumbs up button. And please subscribe and click on the bell icon if you'd like to see more content like this. Thank you for watching today, folks. And I truly wish all of you an absolutely fabulous new year in 2025. Take care.